Popers, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our breakdown, discussion, and review of Andor Episode 6. This one is called The Eye.
Yep. Not that eye.
No.
No.
The All-Seeing Eye.
Not that one either.
Other show. Three things. One, we're going to talk about Tony Gilroy and his lying mouth. Two, Cassian shot first. Three, we knew Nemec was good. This was the Suicide Squad, right? This was spoilers, by the way. We knew that not all of them were going to make it.
Right. Not happy.
I am very much not happy that Nemec is no longer part of this cast because he has been the moral compass, I think, for the show.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about him being Mouse from The Matrix, and the kid who was in the first Fast and Furious, right? He had those same
Jesse,
yeah, those same kind of vibes, and so neither of them made it. You kind of
right
knew that he wasn't
right,
but yeah, I mean, it was the bank heist scene was super intense. Like you just like it was really good for a TV show. You know, I was like on the edge of my seat, and then he gets hit by the trolley, and we both like openly went, "Oh no, come on!" So you know it's good when you're interacting with the TV.
Right. When Gorn gets shot during the heist, you're like, oh, well, it makes sense that he gets shot because he's the Imperial who's been behind enemy lines, who's
right. He's either got to get out or hopefully die in the battle, because if he gets captured, it's going to be bad.
He got cross shot. He didn't even do anything.
Yeah,
he got shot.
It's kind of
and then they took out the other one whose name is not on here. Thank you very much, IMDb. The stormtrooper guy. I cannot believe I cannot remember his name, and it's not on here. Oh wait, there. Armin.
Sure.
When he gets taken out when he's trying to get on the transport, you're like, oh, well, they set him up to die earlier because they talked about how he really likes giving commands and stuff like that, and he was a former stormtrooper.
Right.
So you're like, oh, well, it's maybe comeuppance, like kind of feel like whatever. But then when they take, go ahead.
I would like more stormtroopers to take their helmets off, because so far the two that we've seen have been black.
Right.
So did the Empire enslave the black race here?
So okay, I'm going to be on that guy. So stormtroopers were inscripted soldiers. So those are people who volunteered to be.
But
Finn is a First Order trooper, and those all got kidnapped as little kids.
As kids, okay.
To be, because Janna is also a former stormtrooper in Rise of Skywalker.
And she's black.
So yeah, so we're on all stormtroopers are black.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Did the Empire just enslave all these people? But
yeah, there's a fine line between what the Empire is and how they look, and then the First Order is like the evil incarnation, resurrection of the Empire. So if the Empire's evil, the First Order is just straight Satan,
right?
Like just
right,
just straight. When Nemec gets hit, they're taken off through the asteroid, the meteor shower, and he's the only one who knows how to use the old school. I want to call it a compass, but it's the Imperial compass.
It's a Polaroid camera.
It's a Polaroid camera is what it really comes down to. I love props to history. But he's the only one who knows how to use it. And so when he gets crushed, you're like, I don't know how I feel. I'm already like sad that he's not probably going to make it. But then he is the only one who knows how to use the thing, and they have to do the whole like getting out and stuff.
I would like to point out that's poor planning. You always have redundancies.
Which is, they made a big point of saying that Andor is the redundancy for every crew, except he was the only one who really knew how to fly the transport.
Right, except he didn't know where they were going.
Right, because they didn't give him that information until they were in the air, which is, again, I get it storytelling wise that they don't trust him. There's no reason for him to be trusted.
Yeah.
So you're not going to give him all the details.
Back to bite him in the ass.
Right in the ass. Okay, so the episode is very interesting because we've gotten 2-3 weeks of tension building up to the heist.
Right.
And then this episode starts, and they're just taking that wrench and squeezing a little bit more. And
they're still on the road.
And a little bit more. And it just, they like, I thought the episode would start with the, from the trailer where they're all standing in formation, and it looks like they're on the dam itself. And it really, they were out by where the temple, the
they're on the mountain road coming down into the valley.
Yeah, and so, so I thought that was the start of the episode.
Right.
We're going to put more and more and more and more tension on, and then the Imperial who's in charge of the facility and the science officer who isn't Krennic, which I'm very upset about. Not really. I'm okay with it. Are there to go down and do the exchanging of sheep pelts or whatever.
Right, the make nice
and
with the locals.
But the big thing that was happening with the Imperial side of this conversation was he was explaining, like, over the last 10 years, we've been gently making it easier for them to live outside of the valley. So when we come in and build a spaceport here for the army, it's not going to be, we're not going to get pushback from moving thousands of indigenous people. We're going to get a little pushback from 5 people.
Right. Well, and he talked about they added refreshment stands along the way, and so what started out as 1,500 people ended up being like 60 or something,
right.
Because people were stopping off at the refreshment stands for a drink and then getting drunk and not caring about continuing
taking a 10-day hike.
Right. So they managed to, like, those other 1,400 people are going to be maybe upset, but not as upset because they couldn't even make the journey that one last time.
Right. I just, through that whole section of everything that they were doing before the actual walking into the dam and actually starting the heist, everything through there made me scoot up a little bit more in my seat.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm already on edge with everything that's happened in the last 3 episodes, and now I'm even more. This is like perfect storytelling. This is perfect setup in conclusion to the story arc, which that's something that I really want to talk about in a minute. But instead of just jumping into it, and it's one last little twist of the wrench, like I was saying, but it also gives some context to the importance of what this spot, what this valley is for the indigenous people. And then we also get a dance, a ritualistic dance that we got in Boba Fett that a ton of people really love.
Yeah.
And they did it again here. And I love that the costuming for everybody on Aldhani it's kind of Mongol or Viking, or it's called kind of a mix of all of that.
Yeah.
And so I love that we spent some time with them and the spectacle that was the actual eye of the asteroid storm.
It was very cool. I'd like to be there and watch that.
And I love the emotion that they were all showing and stuff like that, because you juxtaposed. I almost said it.
Juxtaposed
to the actual violence of the heist and the actual smugness of the Imperials the entire time about, next time this comes around, they're not going to be able to do this because we're going to bulldoze it all down to make a parking lot.
Yep, and that's probably part of why they did that as well, right? So that you got some, like, you already hate the science officer, man. You don't care one way or the other about him, but the commander, whatever, he's you don't like him when he's talking about putting in the refreshment stands, and you don't like him when he says he's going to backhand his kid.
Yeah.
And his you can tell that his wife and son are kind of afraid of him to a certain extent.
Right.
And and then he can't quite put his belt on, so, and she makes a little dig about maybe you've expanded and stuff, which I was like, okay, he's going to end up having a heart attack in the middle of this, which is exactly what happened. And couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Yeah, it's throughout this show I have been adding my praise to the show for showing the actual Imperials the way they are.
Yeah.
Not they have the coolest outfits and they have a really cool sounding ship and stuff like that. No, these people are fascist at the highest level and complacent at all the lower levels.
Yeah. And none of the previous, like, the movies and stuff, have really given us a reason to kind of delve into them. You see them with Vader, and they're all cowering to Vader, right? And they're all doing what he says. And you don't really have them in, like, Mandalorian or Obi-Wan. They're outside of that. So this is the first opportunity. I mean, I guess you get a little bit of it, probably the most, in Rogue One, right?
Yeah, especially because you're in. Krennic is one of the the 2 or 3 main characters.
Yeah, and Vader's only in it a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he's more. Krennic's trying to.
He's more of the boss that you have to go get permission from to go talk to the other boss. Like he is what Vader is in that scene. He's not.
Right.
He's the scary guy that the boss has around. He's
the VP.
He's
not
VP.
The president.
He's the VP who throws the chairs in meetings because they miss their quarterly.
Yeah,
their quarterly. Yeah. That's who Vader is.
Yep.
But they've spent time actually talking about Imperials and like their attitude and stuff like that in the books and stuff like that. And so as a Star Wars book reader, or at least I have some read to me, I've really been glad. That's not the right word. I've been really encouraged to have this actually shown on the screen in a major live action version, so I can turn to friends who are like, "Oh, the Imperials are so cool." No, you're wrong. Look what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just even just what they do with Deirdre, just you're a cute little girl sitting in the corner. That's the only reason you're here. Like, even that, and her taking that and, like, I'm gonna make my own way and do my own thing, which is good on her, but she's gonna step on the rebels. So we're not really rooting for Deirdre either, because she's trying to stop the rebels.
Very conflicted on her feelings with her. We empathize with her position,
absolutely,
but then we don't want her to figure it out.
No. Okay, so the heist goes down. We get everybody off the planet. They
we get 4 people off.
We get 4 people off the planet, and they actually get to a doctor to try to help save Nemik, and he's got a crushed spine, and he was able to stay alive thanks to a stem to get them out. But at the doctor, while Nemik and Vale are in, like, working with the doctor and stuff like that, all that stuff's going on. Skeen and Cassian have a long talk outside. And Skeen starts with, "How much do you think is in there?" Looking at the transport, and he kind of like, Cassian's like, "I really care."
Yeah.
And Skeen says, "You wanted to win. There's 80 million in there."
Yeah, give or take.
Give or take. And he's like, I will give you half, and get us off the planet, and I'll find us a place to lay low, and I'll let you have 40, and I'll take 40, and I'll never think of you again.
Yep.
And Cassian asks him about his brother, because that was a big like bonding moment last week. And he's like, my brother isn't. That story isn't real.
Yeah, I don't have a brother.
I'm here. I'm a rebel, but it's me versus everybody, and I'm here for the money.
Yep.
Which is an interesting kind of story point, because they made such a big point of Cassian coming out and saying, "I'm only here for the money" last week.
Yeah.
And now we get to this point where he's going to get way more than he was ever promised.
Yeah.
And Cassian shoots first.
Yeah.
And gets the drop on Skeen, and Skeen deserves it. I haven't liked. He's been shady from jump. But him just being like, I was only here for the money. Screw everybody else. Let's go. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And then you say, this is the beginnings of Cassian really coming to grips with, I don't want to be this guy.
Yeah.
I actually want to be in the rebellion for a proper sense. And then Val gave him Nemec's manifesto when he went to her and said, "Skeen's dead. I just want what I was paid. I'll give you 30,000 credits for the other transport out there to the doctor." And she gives him the manifesto. So now he's got this thought in his head about what is really the conversation going on.
Right.
And he's got the manifesto.
Right. Well, and he's, projecting forward a little bit. Now obviously not 40 or 80 million credits, but he's getting a good chunk of change.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can go disappear for a while. He can think about, the manifesto and what Skeen said. And, Cassian's never been leading up to this. You see, he's not a bad guy. And you know that from Rogue One. He's not a bad guy.
Right.
He's just, as he was younger, had to do some stuff just to pretty much survive.
Right.
And he has a hatred for the Empire.
Yep. Which they reiterated in this episode.
Right. And it just makes sense once he can stop for a minute, because he's not having to fight for his next meal.
Right.
But he can stop and kind of, think about things. Go pull a Ben Kenobi, right, and go find a cave somewhere and hide out for a minute and start to think about this stuff. He's gonna. I mean, we know he does, but this is
right. This is one of the things this Force Center talks about a lot. That has actually become a manifesto for myself. Is, yes, we know where Andor ends. We know we know the decision he makes. This story, the 24 episodes that we're going to get with the story, is why. Why does he make this decision to do this, to go on this suicide run,
right,
to Scarif and to get the Death Star plans? Why does he do that? And I'm here for that conversation. At the same time, you're having this conversation of, here's what real oppression looks like. Oh, by the way, it mirrors the real world. Oh, by the way, here's people who are trying to do the right thing for the right reasons and doing it the right way. And then you got the whole story with Mothma, who's willing to risk everything that she's got, including her daughter, to rebel against this evil organization. I'm here for those kinds of stories.
Right.
I like the pew pew lightsabers, force using spaceships, whatever. That's the vehicle to teach you about these themes and to teach you about these real world things wrapped up in this really cool science fantasy opera.
Well, that's George Lucas. I mean, that's
the
George
whole
Lucas
point of Star Wars.
all over. Yep, he wanted to talk about these social issues that were going on in the world then and now, and wrap it up in a pew pew sci-fi, fun story. And it's also classic Lucas in that, we've had um, uh, uh, the Mandalorian, which was really kind of outside of the Skywalker saga until it wasn't, but
by design, yeah.
Right. And but there's the books like from a certain point of view, and there's like we started in the middle of the Skywalker saga, and this isn't by design; it's how it worked. But now they're just going with it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They started in the middle, they went backwards, they went forwards, and now we're kind of getting some of these from a certain point of view, these outside stories that might kind of graze by the Skywalker saga, or you're like, oh yeah, what were we watching? Where they said, oh, it was last week when they said they were talking about the
Kessel Run.
Kessel, there was the rebellion in Kessel, or the small rebellion or whatever in Kessel, and it's like, that
and then we watched Solo last night.
Yeah, so, that would have been Han.
Yeah. Han.
Andor.
Welcome to Star Wars, where nobody in universe actually says the character names right. So I feel justified and vindicated in my love.
It's endearing. It's endearing that they can't say their names right.
I feel seen. First time in my life. A stuttering, white, middle-aged man. Okay, so the other thing that I want to talk about is the news getting out.
Yeah.
So Mothma is giving her big speech in the Senate, and very few people are there.
The rest of them aren't paying attention.
She finally looks down, looks at her tablet, and she does not react. But we all know what the tablet is talking about. And then we go to Luthen's Den of Antiquities, and they're trying to sell this lady this jewelry. He said there's some writing on the back. It's probably Sith language, which is dead at this point in time. And I just love his little comment of it's perfect because then you can make up whatever you want in the back of it. And then somebody in the front who's like not paying attention is like, oh, if there's anything from Aldhani, and he like turns around. He's like, oh yeah, some rebels did a big heist on Aldhani, and I wonder if there's anything there, like because he's so disconnected, the random guy so disconnected from the world that he's like, oh, if something from Aldhani is here, maybe it's worth more, if I buy it or whatever, because it's in the news. Welcome to comic book shopping. And I just love Luthen, like, well, I don't know, let me go check in the back. And he goes to the back, he just starts like, yes! Yes! He's going to be sad when he learns how everything went down, but I don't know if he really cares outside of Vale. Because that's his daughter. I'm going with that until...
Okay. And they left the other girl on the planet.
On Aldhani, yeah.
And apparently the two of them were together.
Yes. They've kind of, sort of, like... kind of doing the head nod like the last couple episodes, but they really kind of came out and it did everything but say it this time.
So, but I mean, they were flying away, and she's got the Imperial like commander or whatever outfit on, and walking down to the little shindig, and I was like, hey, wait, they left something.
I think that was part of the plan the whole time, because she was supposed to stay and watch over the head Imperial's family, and the guards, and make sure that they got out. And once they got out, I said early in the episode, well, she's a secret badass, and she was the first one to fire shots and kill the Imperial science officer. But I'm hoping that she just left them stay tied up and gagged in the tower.
Probably.
And then she just walked off and then joined the group. She shows up, she joins in the group, which I thought was in on it the entire time.
Yeah, because they kept smirking and and they never translated what the chieftain guy was saying. So
I think that maybe they were, at least the chieftain or a couple other people were involved. They wrap her up and she goes on the walk with them.
Yeah.
Kind of just fades into the crowd. And then she shows up in 3 episodes from now Val, and then they have a big confrontation that Andor, left her there, and Luthen's like, well, now you're in the rebellion now. You're a real rebel now. Nemec telling Cassian to climb in the same pitch and rhythm as K2 does in Endgame, in Rogue One was just like, it was perfect for me. That's an Easter egg for those of us who know. It means nothing to anybody who doesn't.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the last thing I want to talk about is Tony Gilroy and his lion mouth. So Tony, when I talked about doing this Andor series, Tony Gilroy was the second one to come in, and he actually came to Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy and said, here's my treatment of what the story is that I would like to tell with Andor and the story of the rebellion, and but it was pitched to us as the audience as it's going to be its own thing. Multiple times he has said there won't be any Easter eggs, there won't be any cameos. It's its own standalone thing. It just happens to be in this universe. And he's been a liar forever lying because we got all the stuff in Luthen's shop. We've got multiple references to Kessel and Scarif and stuff like that, which are Easter eggs, quote unquote, that makes sense within the story.
Right.
That we are, as we're sitting, like, these are things.
Well, and we got Mon Mothma, and we know that we're going to get Saw Gerrera. So we know that there are
but those aren't necessarily cameos. Those are like Luke showing up for Grogu. It makes sense for the story in which they're telling.
Right, and it's like I was saying, kind of that brushed by the Skywalker.
I expect them to say something about Jyn in next season, like Jyn Erso, or Galen, or something along that line.
Well, it would make sense that at least towards the end of next season, because they're going to run right up to
Rogue One,
the start of Rogue One, and so obviously, Mon and the other guy that was like running the rebellion,
Bail Organa.
No, the captain guy.
Oh yeah, the general, with the epic mustache, and
Cassian to kill, Jen or Galen. That
trying to pull it, and I get it's like right there, and
the guy. They are going to have to bring up her name because they go get her.
The Ursos will be in the conversation next season, like at some point in time. But also with this show so far, they've done 3 episode story arcs, and a lot of people, for right or wrong, have dismissed or poo-pooed Star Wars animation, and I was one of them. I didn't jump in until the 3rd season of Rebels, and finished the run of Rebels, went back, rewatched it from jump through the whole season, and then went back and watched Clone Wars, and then rewatched Rebels, and then watched Bad Batch, and like work my whole way through everything. And now I'm watching Clone Wars again.
He's always rewatching one of the 3.
But the stories, the storytelling process, the story arcs, the importance of rebellion or friendship, or how bad the Empire is directly parallels Clone Wars and Rebels. And me as a person who now has come to love the animation and the stories that they're telling it. The first little bit of Clone Wars is rough to watch. They didn't know what they were doing yet. It gets much better, I swear. but Tony Gilroy is a lion, mouthy mouth, because he wanted to do this different thing, and it feels so much like Clone Wars. It feels so much like Rebels. Rebels is going on the same exact time right now.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that is just really makes me happy. But I bring up here because I think more people need to go in and interact with those properties, because you learn so much more backstory. If people complain about Rise of Skywalker being way too fast, all of that's like a lot of how that is what is told in that story and the conversation that's being told in that story is done in the books and the animation and the comics and the like whatever.
Because by the time they got there, they knew they have all these other.
It's the final act of a nine-piece story,
right? Like, but they have all these other properties. All this stuff has been going on since, since we went back into the prequels. Now in the sequels in the
sequel trilogy,
the
trilogy.
They have these comic books and books and
right.
and side cartoon shows, and so they know that they don't necessarily have to tell a complete story in one movie, because if you want to know more, there's all this other stuff you can.
And when they announced, when the cell was announced, Kathleen Kennedy came out and said everything that happened outside of the movies and the Clone Wars series is no longer connected canon to the story that we're about to tell going forward. A lot of people poo-pooed that. I'm sorry, Legends is wackadoo 95%, okay, 90% of the time. There's some really, really good stuff in there too. But there's a freaking rabbit in the comic. It's a 6-foot rabbit that walks around in the comic that's hanging out with Han Solo. And I love Jackson. I think Jackson's amazing. But a lot of that is so weird and so disconnected, and everybody got to tell their own version of a Star Wars story without any kind of connective storytelling tissue to any of it. So when they came together and said, hey, everything from here now counts, I never had a problem with what they told in Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, because I read the books and I read the comics. Now, a lot of people are going to sit here and say in the comments right now, like, you shouldn't have to, which is, again, a complete legitimate discussion to have. You can't tell me they haven't told you this stuff when it's already showing up in other mediums. And this show
but you don't have to. I haven't read the books. I haven't watched the Clone Wars and Rebels and stuff, and I thought that the sequel series was fine. Don't at me. I thought it was fine.
The Canto Bite stuff I could do with that.
Yeah, and well, the first one and the last one were fine. The Ryan Johnson one, I'm sorry, it can't.
That's a whole different kind of conversation we can have. But
I didn't feel like, from a storytelling perspective, that there was stuff happening that I didn't understand because it was being explained in some other medium. I got the story. I may not have exactly liked the execution all the time, but I got the story. I understand from point A to point B, and that's more than I can say for the original series. Maybe it was because I saw them all in the movie theater, like a year and a half apart, 2 years apart. But I mean, it's been recently when I've been able to watch them repeatedly that I've gone, oh,
right.
Now I get. Like, how did we go from here to here? But
the reason I bring this up is because if you were loving the structure, if you're loving the way the detail and the storytelling and the process of the show, where it's 3 episode story arc and all that stuff came from the way they set up Clone Wars and then how they continue to tell that story in Rebels.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people are coming around to Andor and said, this is the Star Wars I've always wanted. I'm like, this is really good storytelling. I don't know if it's my favorite or not. I don't know if it will be my favorite. I am loving the show. It doesn't make any, that doesn't take away my ranking. Not that I have a total complete, but the idea of what people are saying about the show and the way they're telling the story is directly from Clone Wars.
Well, and
I won't say directly. It is the way Clone Wars was
told. And again, that's Lucas storytelling.
Yeah.
And the reason why Lucas does it like that is because, and he talks about this, is that he used to go to the movies when he was a little kid, and it was the weekly serial, whatever, Robin Hood, I don't know. Buck Rogers.
No, Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon. Yeah. So it's like 1 or 2, or 2 or 3 movies back to back that have the same basic, it's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, but then all of the movies together, or a large chunk of them, have this overarching main story, main bad guy that keeps popping up here and there, whatever. So, I mean, it's classic Lucas.
Yeah, and I just think a lot of people have lost track of that conversation. They it's really clickbaity cool to sit there and say this is the best Star Wars that's ever Star Wars. I even made that joke after the show, after this episode, and I'm saying it because it's just taking for me taking a giant magnifying glass in the shape of Andor, and I want to point it to Clone Wars and Rebels in the books and say, look, it's not, they're not reinventing the wheel here.
Right.
They're telling the same story. They're teaching the same lessons. They're showing it in the same version. You just haven't watched this version of it.
Right, and it can just be a matter of, again, the medium, right?
It's a lot more approachable when it's live action compared to angular cartoon character.
Right,
for a lot of people.
For much younger kid audience. Or books. Not everybody is into books, gets the whole mind movie that goes on while you're reading. So yeah, this is much more digestible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that's our conversation about Star Wars. We also talked about Andor in there somewhere.
It was good. Go watch it.
It was a great episode, and now the 6 episodes are out. We have 6 more, and everything's been leading up to the heist, and everything we've seen in the trailer has been up to this point, and so everything on is a mystery.
It's all new.
It's all new, and we will speculate, obviously, once we get a little bit more Easter eggs, and that's right, clues, as we go into the next story arc. But
right.
I'm here for it. I want more Luthen. And where's B2? Where's my droid?
Right, they put him in the opening credits.
If you kill off Nemik, you give me B2 back. Like that's the exchange. So let us know what you thought of this episode, our discussion, and our breakdown of it in the comments down below. Please be nice. That's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.